In this video, I'm going to show you how to record 2 simultaneous tracks in GarageBand. I will also show you how to make some basic edits and how to mix your audio. If you haven't already watched it, make sure that you first review the video called Podcasting with the Focusrite Scarlett to understand how to properly set up the equipment that you will need to follow along with this video. When you first open GarageBand, you'll see a screen that looks like this. Choose Empty Project. Another dialog box will automatically open. Make sure the microphone icon is selected. Make sure that under Input, Input 1 is showing. Make sure that your instrument is connected with Scarlett 2i2 USB and that you can hear sound from Scarlett 2i2 USB. If you want to change your input device, click on this arrow and go to the drop-down menu next to Input Device. Here you can select a different input device. We'll just leave it on Scarlett 2i2 USB and close out. Click Create. We have to create one more track, so go to Track, New Track. All of your settings can stay the same, but change Input to Input 2, and click Create again. There are a few adjustments we need to make to our workspace to get it ready for podcasting. Turn off the count up and metronome, come to this little musical icon, and change it from beats and project to time. Double-click where it says Audio 1. I'm going to rename this to Interviewer Input 1. I call it Input 1 so I know which mic and input this audio signal is coming from on my Scarlett. Now double-click on Audio 2. I'm going to rename this and call it Guest Input 2. This refers to Input 2 on my Scarlett. You'll see here that there is a green line showing up on Track 2. This means Track 2 is receiving an audio signal from Input 2 on the Scarlett. We want to activate both tracks. So go up to Track, Track Header, Show Record Enable button. This will add a record button to each track. Go ahead and click on the record button on each track to activate it. Now you should see green lines on each track. This means each track is receiving an audio signal from its respective input on the Scarlett. Before we start our first recording, we want to check our levels. You'll see that if the levels are ever turning yellow or red on either track, that means the sound is getting distorted and is peaking. If this is happening, you might want to turn down the dial on the Scarlett for that input, or ask your subject to back away slightly from the mic. You always want your levels to stay in the green area. Okay, let's do our first recording by clicking on the big record button in the main menu bar. You can see waveforms starting to show up in each track as the interviewer and guest are talking. When you're ready, you can go ahead and click on the stop button. These levels look a little low to me, so I'm going to turn up the input gain on my Scarlett to get a stronger audio signal for each track. Okay, now we're going to click the record button again. We can see that by adjusting the input gain dials on the Scarlett, the waveforms are much larger. Click Stop when you're ready. To listen to your audio, you can drag the playback header all the way to the beginning of your timeline. Or if you have a really long recording, you can just click on this button and it'll take you right back to the beginning of your timeline. Then click Play to listen to your audio. Remember, you're going to be hearing the audio coming out of your headphones that are connected to the Scarlett 2i2. When we first set up our tracks here in GarageBand, we chose the Scarlett as the output device. We could always change our output device to be the computer speakers or to be a pair of external speakers if we wanted to. I'm going to click Stop here and go up to GarageBand, Preferences, and then the Audio MIDI tab. Here I can change the output device. If I choose system setting, it'll just use the computer's speakers to play back the audio. I'm just going to leave it on the Scarlett 2i2 and close out of this box. Now that I'm ready to edit, I'm going to turn off the record button on each track so that it's not blinking and distracting me. To cut out a piece of audio, I'm going to move my playback header to the approximate area, zoom in, move to that part of the timeline and adjust my playback header, and then I'm going to shift select both clips and go to Edit, Split Regions at Playhead, or Command T on my keyboard. That's going to make a cut. Then I'm going to move my playback header to the end of the area where I want to make a cut and do Command T on my keyboard. Now I can shift select both of these and delete them from my timeline. And now I can rejoin these clips with the original clips. A lot of times there will be dead space or silence toward the end of your tracks. You can trim this out by shift selecting the clips and dragging the ends in. A cool feature in GarageBand is the loop library. The loop library provides you access to a variety of sound effects and audio without having to worry about copyright. If I wanted to search for a sound effect, I can use the search bar up here. For example, a dog's bark. If I want to use a jingle, I can select Jingle and scroll through the list at the bottom. To preview a sound, I just click on it. If I like this jingle, I can drag it into my project. You'll see when I drag it in, it creates its own new track. I like this jingle, so I'm going to close out of my loop library by clicking on the loop button. Now I'm going to zoom out of my project and scroll over so I can see my entire project. Now this is a really short jingle, but I want to use this as background music for my project. What I can do is go to the top right of the clip and I'll see a little loop icon. This allows me to drag out the clip and loop it over and over again. Now it's like a piece of background music. If I don't like this, I can right-click on the track and go to Delete Track. Here I'm going to click OK. If I want to add my own music, I can go to the Media Browser button in the top right. This menu shows all of the music in my iTunes library. I'm going to select a piece called Out of This World and drag it to my project. And then I'm going to close out of the media browser. As you can see, this is a really long piece of music. I'm going to make a few cuts by dragging my playback header, doing Command T on my keyboard, and now I can get rid of the sections of the music that I don't want and just keep the piece that I do want. I can also choose to loop this music by grabbing the top right corner. As you can see, there are a lot of options in GarageBand for adding other types of audio to your project. Audio mixing is the process of taking multiple recorded tracks and blending them together. It's a pretty big topic, so today we're just going to focus on balancing your levels. We can do that in GarageBand through automation. You can access automation by clicking on this button. Automation adds a drop-down menu to each of your tracks. This menu includes effects like volume, pan, echo, reverb, and more. Automation has been added to your track with this light gray line. If I click on this line, it'll turn yellow. I can adjust the volume of the entire track by dragging this line up or down. I can do more fine-tune adjustments by clicking on the automation line and adding keyframes, which are these dots. Then I can do fade outs or fade ups like this. It's common with music to have a fade up in the beginning and to have a fade out at the end. This process of balancing your levels is very time consuming, so make sure you allot enough time at the end of your project to do this. You want to make sure that when you're balancing your levels, no one track is overpowering. Especially pay close attention to the music. You don't want the music to overpower the sound of the vocals. Here I am adding keyframes to track 2. If you want to delete an individual keyframe, you can double-click on it and it will remove that keyframe. If you want to delete all of the keyframes on a track, select that track and go up to Mix, delete all automation on selected track. Sometimes you might want to add audio files to your project that are not saved in iTunes. For example, I have on my desktop a folder called Field Recordings. Within this folder, I have an MP3 of ambient noise. To add this to my GarageBand project, I simply drag and drop it in. You can see that GarageBand creates a new track for this clip, and you can go ahead and edit this track just like you would any other track. I'm all done with my project. I have recorded several tracks and have edited and adjusted the volume for the tracks using keyframing. I want to make sure that I save my project now. I'm going to go to File, and generally here I would choose Save, but since my project is actually already saved, I'm going to go ahead and choose Save As. I'm going to save my project by calling it my final editable project. I'm calling it this because I can always come back to this project and edit it or add a new track. When I'm ready, I just click Save. To submit this to my professor, I need to export it as an MP3. So I go up to Share, Export Song to Disk, and here I have the choice of 3 file types, AAC, MP3, or AIFF. I'm going to go ahead and stick with MP3 and make sure that I've chosen highest quality from the drop-down menu. I'm also going to make sure that I name this, and I'm going to call this my final exported project. And then click Export when I'm ready. And depending on the length of your podcast, this export process might take longer. Mine is very short, so it exports pretty quickly. I like to upload my exported MP3 to SoundCloud, but you can also use Google Drive or Box. If you are creating this podcast for a class, you should check with your professor about how they would like for you to submit the project. That's everything you need to know in order to get up and running on editing a podcast. If you would like to learn more about GarageBand or about audio editing, I would recommend checking out one of the many amazing courses that are available to you for free through lynda.georgetown.edu. All right, good luck on your podcast.